Someone was knocking at my window. Lean and I have been having a bit of a problem. Every morning around 1:01 a.m. there's knock at our window. Here's why I think it's gotten out of hand. The first time I woke up to get a glass of water that's always next to me. That's when I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Weird, I thought to myself. I looked at the time 01:01. I shifted in my bed. Tap, tap, tap. It sounded quicker. I chalked it off to my neighbors or whatever. At that point I just wanted to sleep. Next day the whole thing was erased from my mind. I went on about my day as usual. Came around midnight. I woke up to the voice of my girlfriend in my ear. Babe. She yelled a bit louder as if I hadn't heard her for the past 5 times. I rolled over. What? Geez. She had a bewildered look in her eyes. There's someone tapping at the window. She pointed towards the window. The room was dark, except from the light from the moon that snuck through the bottom of the curtains. I shook my head. Babe, there's no one. Tap, tap, tap. I heard it. I glanced at the clock. 1:01 a.m. it read. And the tapping sounded like someone was using their fingernail to knock on the window. I froze. The room was silent, straining my ear to listen carefully. Then the tapping grew a bit louder. Tap, tap, tap. Then a pause. I didn't know what to do, but I froze. It was 1 a.m. for crying out loud. Then, after what felt like a long time, I gathered enough courage. I got off the bed and walked towards the window. My heart hammered in my chest. I don't know what I expected to find. Pictures of ghouls or a clown wielding a quadruple-shaped sex toy plagued my mind. I had to shake those thoughts off. Each step felt heavier than the previous one. I pulled back the curtains, and to no one's surprise, it was empty. No one there except a fogged-up window with a message that faded as soon as I read it. I rubbed my eyes. Sometimes I have a wild imagination. I'm not even sure it was written there. I turned around with a smile on my face, trying to act tough. It was probably a brunch, I think. I could tell by the look in her eyes she wasn't convinced. Now that you woke me, can I get a little sucky tucky? I wiggled my waist and pointed towards my penis, and she clicked her tongue. No way, I'm going to bed. She pulled the blankets over her head. I was too tired to even think about the whole ordeal. When morning came, the day passed by without any problems. Later on, it started raining. We somehow fell asleep on the couch watching a Lord of the Rings marathon for like the 10th time. The rain was faint, signaling it coming to an end. Then there it was, those knocks. Tap, tap, tap. The sound was drowned by the sound of rain falling down, but sure, it was the same knocking. I pulled the covers over my head and snuggled with my girlfriend, pretending I couldn't hear a thing. Tap, tap, tap. In that same rhythm, I kept quiet. Tap, tap, tap. This time it sounded urgent. I squeezed Lean and buried my face on her back. The tapping was faster now. Tap, tap, tap. Short pause. Tap, tap, tap. I closed my eyes tight. Somehow I fell asleep. So how did you sleep? She asked me as she handed a cup of coffee. Oh no. She placed her hands on the sides of my face. Are you sure? She's so pretty, I thought to myself. Yes, babe, I am. Later on that night, the knock came at the same time as usual. Tap, tap, tap. I was up doing some work and Lean was finishing her knitting. A moment of silence fell upon us. Tap, tap, tap. I stood up, making sure not to make any noise, slowly opened the kitchen drawer and pulled out a kitchen knife. I looked towards Lean and she shook her head. Then I moved towards the window. Tap, tap, tap. I froze. The knocking was mimicking my steps. I took a step. Tap. Another tap. I ran. Tap, tap, tap. I stopped right near the window. I could see a silhouette illuminated by the moon's light. It looked like a head, then quickly disappeared. I couldn't make out any more features. Then the scratching began, nails running across glass, piercing my eardrums. I dropped the knife and covered my ears. Lean did the same. The scratching off glass seemed to come from nowhere but everywhere at once. It sounded like it was right next to me. Just scratching and more scratching. I thought I was going to go deaf. It got loud and louder, with the rhythmic tapping underneath the glass. Scratching. Tap, tap, tap. I hurried and pulled back the curtain and nothing. I was dumbfounded. What the fuck? What? Lean was crouching behind the couch, her head poking out. What the fuck? Then she stood up and came to where I was. There was nothing on the other side of the window. Well, not nothing purse, there was a bloody handprint and scratch marks that ran across the glass. They were so deep you'd think it was a knife that carved them. I had to swallow the bile that was rising from my throat. My heart pounded so loud it mummed Lean's voice. She had to poke me. Bryce, are you listening? I nodded. Yeah. What was that, babe? There was a look of fear in her eyes. I don't want to stay here anymore. She was hugging herself. I pulled her close. It's gonna be okay, babe. It's gonna be fine. It's probably a prank. I wasn't fully convinced. I know she knew I wasn't even convincing. The truth is I was dumbfounded. I was in total lost as to how could someone, let alone a bloody handprint, ended up on top of a 12-story apartment building. Mind you, we're on the 10th floor. There's no fire escape, no nothing, not even a ledge to stand on. So how did whatever that thing was ended up outside my window? The blood was pretty fresh. Morning took longer to come. We spent our day outside. Dreading to go back home, I couldn't take Lean back there, so I made her stay at her friend's place. She was adamant at first, babe, I'll have to check it out and see. If the house is safe, we'll go there and finish the rest of the month since we already paid rent. If not, I'll grab our stuff, okay? I gave her a kiss on the forehead. She pulled me closer. Be careful, okay, Bri? I pulled out my old baseball bat from underneath the bed and wore my old Spider-Man costume for assurance. I sat there, near the window, watching the clock, formulating a plan and plotting every move or strategy one could use during these circumstances. They all ended the same, with me winning. Little did I know what awaited me. 101 no tap, 102 no tap on the window still, 103 no tap, and yes 104 no tap. I took a deep sigh and laughed at no one in particular, laughing at my own foolishness for thinking up a monster that wasn't there. Then my phone rang. Bryce, it's here, it's here. Lean was panicking. I could hear slight tapping at the background of her voice. Please, please come get me, please. I'm scared. I jumped off the chair, rushing to get my keys, staggering all over the place. Stay on the phone, talk to me, Lean. I was struggling to put on my shoes with the costume on. Bryce, please open the window. She pleaded. I could hear the panic in her voice. I was already at the doorstep. Thoughts of my girlfriend getting mauled or worse flooded my mind and, wait a minute, I thought. What the fuck do you mean open the window, Lean? I asked. There was panting on the other side of the phone. A low growl that made the phone vibrate in my ear. Followed was a pause. Then I heard the tapping, tap, tap, tap. The window shook. Yes, Bryce, open the window. Her voice seemed to crackle. Then it sounded like a mixture of voices. I don't know how to explain it, but it sounded evil. I will give you a sucky, sucky, tucky, tucky, Bryce. The voice was malicious. I felt a shiver down my spine. The tapping increased its pace. Tap, 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 tap. I stepped back from the door. Then there was a bang. A knock followed. I ignored it. The door knob rattled. The knocks became aggressive. The door shook on its hinges. I was afraid whatever was outside was going to break the door. The window shattered. Glass flying everywhere. I turned around to hear crackling and sounds of teeth grinding glass. My whole body shook to the core. The baseball bat felt like coal in my hands. I dropped it. Legs turned to jelly. I felt the weight of the situation falling on me. At that moment, I knew fear in more languages than one. The banging from my door was loud, and louder it got. I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted to crawl into some hole and bury myself, hopefully escape this torment. I curled up into a little ball, hugging my knees, and buried my head between my legs. The sound of glass grinding escalated, fueled by the banging of the door. Everything, all sounds at once, crashed onto me like a wave. I didn't know what to do, run or hide, fight or die. Images of what awaits me outside flashed before my eyes. My life, I had wasted my life, and now I'm about to die to God knows what. By the time Lean found me, I was a sobbing mess. She said I was mumbling something, my costume wet from piss and my own tears. My whole manhood declined that day. There's things in this world bigger than us, things that can strip away your very being and leave you feeling exposed. Glass laid all over the floor. Scratch marks were found outside my door. And outside the window there were bloody handprints and footprints different sizes. Footprints ran across the ceiling, bloody with claw marks dragging across the room. Ever since that day, I've avoided staying in apartments. I've avoided being near that building.